National Public Procurement Authority, NPPA, with the support of the government of Sierra Leone, the World Bank and the Africa Development Bank, has concluded a comprehensive assessment of Sierra Leone's public procurement systems using the methodology for assessing procurement systems, MAPS. Now, this milestone marks a major step forward in the national commitment to procurement reforms, transparency and accountability. The document will be validated today at the Radisson Blu Mamioko Hotel, Aberdeen, west of Freetown, on the theme, validating our progress, strengthening public procurement for sustainable development. Now, this morning in the studios to chat this, I've been joined by Fodie Konneh. Fodie is the Chief Executive Officer of NPPA. Good morning. It's a pleasure having you in our program this morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Achieve across the board. So procuring entities were charged with the decision making and undertaking the day-to-day affairs of procurement. And wherever issues are there to monitor, regulate, build capacity, the National Public Procurement Authority comes into play. When there are grievances, the IPRP, which is the grievance redress mechanism for all procurement issues, are also there to address grievances between the private sector and the procuring entities or the government.
Would you say that was a problem? I mean, you said they had decentralized. There are several actors who were coming together to do procurement processes in Sierra Leone. Was that a problem? Was that the main reason why you decided to employ the MAPS, technology here?
So the MAPS is really trying to diagnose where we are with our reform process and to establish gaps or what good things that we have been able to implement over the years.
Gaps. Okay.
So yes. So basically, the reform which started by creating a transparent landscape that is decentralizing procurement and decision making to the end user or beneficiary MDAs was a major reform across Commonwealth countries, African countries, and across the world, which has now been the trend that procurement should not be centralized at one place when it used to be at the Ministry of Finance to a body called the Central Tender Board, which had its own challenges. So with the decentralization, a lot of players came in, and also the public became also a watchdog. You have civil society, you have other agencies that we are also looking at what public officers are doing in the field of procurement. So it was a major reform. Now we realize that there was a lot of human factor in the procurement process. And that human factor is creating a lot of personal discretions. In that regard, we are also phasing out the manual system to a digital system, which now will bring in a lot of, will mitigate a lot of corruption tendencies that are observed within public expenditure or public financial management across the board.
Would you agree with me that procurement is the lifeblood of every government?
I will agree with you 100%, because procurement itself is the acquisition of goods, works, and services. And this is done for the running of the state. So majority of the budget that the government runs goes through procurement, over 60% of that budget. And if service
60% of the government's budget runs through the NPPA?
Yes, run through the procurement system, not through NPPA. It runs through the procurement system across all MDAs.
Which you have control of?
No, the budget is run by the Ministry of Finance. Okay. And it's implemented by all MDAs that are beneficiaries within the financial management framework.
In the last 5-6 years, would you say you've run that office without any blemish, without any corrupt scandal or shortcomings of any sort?
Yes.
I'll take it that perhaps you haven't read the previous audit reports, the most recent one.
Yes, I've got a glimpse of it. But in relation to that aspect, the finance department of the Public Procurement Authority has sometimes been without a director of finance. So those are some of the challenges we are trying to address.
So NPPA doesn't have a finance department? Or
no, we have
someone
a finance department.
Someone to
head
the department.
We don't have a director of finance currently.
Why is that?
Well, because the then finance director resigned.
Why did he resign?
He traveled out of the country.
How long has it been since he left?
About a year now.
A year?
Yes.
And you've not seen the need to employ
so
someone?
We're already putting out an advert for the employment of a new finance director.
You know, your staff were paid both, you know, monthly transport allowance of 160,000 and weekly fuel allowance of 198.540 thousand leones. That's double compensation. All of these were cited in the audit report. It shows clear. Okay, so here, so the report confirms that no evidence was provided to recover the duplicated amount of 198,000 leones.
So we don't pay transport allowances to our staff. There
is an insolvency debt from NPPA of about 2,884,626.20 leones in unpaid supplier bills. That's on page 329 of the. Now, see, the NPPA reportedly owes suppliers a total of 2 million, over 2 million, 2.5 million, with no payment plan submitted.
Oh, okay. So that's an inherited thing from the previous leadership of the NPPA. So we've been trying to address some of those issues, and we have not been able to acquire the necessary budget to offset. But this, based on the public financial management system, these are debts that we will forward to the public debt department, and they will address them.
What have you done so far? You said you've been trying to address these problems. You know, because it started all from the 2019 audit report, and in this recent one as well, this is verbatim from pages of the audit report. That's what I'm reading from, actually.
Yes. So, as I told you, the aspect of the inherited debt, we've not been able to offset everything, but we have got arrangements with the Ministry of Finance to forward those debts so they can review and assess their authenticity and their claims by the suppliers.
Now, 198,000 in duplicated allowances not recovered. Now, also 2.8 million in debts with no plan, incomplete financials, no response to the audit queries. Why haven't you sacked any of these staff? Or haven't you launched full investigation within your office
these are
for some of these financial deficiencies?
So these are not staff issues, because NPPA does not pay staff.
Okay.
They are paid from the central payroll. So the claim that the audit service is doing is based on a system that maybe he's saying that the original, when NPPA was paying staff, when they were not on the payroll, they will pay staff and pay allowances. But that's no longer the case. They have now a composite salary, so they don't have any allowance added to it. But that was the original structure. But when the payroll are centralized now, they pay them just off.
Are you saying that the audit report could be wrong? Some of these figures and analysis they've made?
I'm not saying the audit report may be wrong, but they might be citing systems that have changed. And sometimes if you do not follow up to make those updates, then you have things will reflect the same way as it is.
Aren't you worried that some of these, you know, blemishes or corrupt allegations in this audit report could perhaps soil your reputation as head of the institution?
So these are not really corrupt. These are administrative issues that can be addressed administratively. It's not a corrupt.
But there are no documents to support this thing. That's what the audit report is saying.
So the audit report is saying that we don't have an arrangement to offset first, to offset the inherited debts. So debts is normal. You know, even central government has debts, so you have to see how you mechanism how you do it. So debt is not really corruption. So it's how mechanism how you offset the debt. That's where it is. So in terms of those issues that has to do with payroll issues, we really don't manage payroll. We don't manage the payroll. It's a centralized payroll system. These are issues that we'll also look into, and we see how we can address them accordingly.
Let's talk about, you know, doing business by gender in this country. Now, women-led businesses receive less than 5% of public contract, despite making up to 60%, you know, of the market activity. According to Sleeper and ILO studies, there is still monopoly of politically awarded contract. Don't you think so?
So, well, you want me to address the gender issue or the politically motivated?
You could start with the gender. Why is it that we are far less, 5%?
So gender issues are very systemic, cultural and otherwise. So even it's only after the emergence of the free quality education, you have more enrollment. And that has been trying to be addressed since the President Jankaba's time, having more to encourage girls to be enrolled to school. And that is for one form of the basis to have more gender participation in various arms of life, you see. So the same thing applies to gender-led businesses. So the issue here is you have women in businesses, but they might not be the leaders of the businesses. So, and sometimes the nature of businesses women engage in are solution-based businesses, not just trading. They might choose to manufacture soap, they would choose to do fabrics development or tailoring. So, so basically some of these services are not in high demand when it comes to government operations in terms of what they are doing. So we are also encouraging SMEs, women-led SMEs to participate in public contracts. That is a thing that we are promoting. We have partnered with Irish Aid and the Budget Advocacy Network to do a thorough study on that and how they can be empowered. We also have a gender-sensitive desk that we are making sure that we try to explain to
within the NPPA?
Yes, women-led businesses, how they can be able to do business with the government. So we are also dealing with that. So in terms of women-led businesses, we are trying to create the structure. And maybe parts of the review that will be done, because when the MAPS process will have been completed, we'll be reviewing the act. Some of these things will be given consideration that will give opportunity for women-led businesses to thrive within the economy. We are currently registering also, we are taking a proper statistics of businesses that are doing business with government. So we are registering all contractors and suppliers across the board. So now we'll be able to determine the level of gender participation in businesses across the board, wherein we'll know how many women are employed in a particular business, how many women are in the leadership of those businesses, and how many women are leading those businesses, and their level of participation into government contracts or access to funds to participate in on government contracts.
So what's going to change crucially? Like, this afternoon is very important for the NPPA. You're going to otherwise validate, you know, and accept a particular system that you think would move you forward in terms of the way you do business, administer the NPPA. But crucially, as I've said earlier, I mean, some of these things, it's not about, you know, bringing forward the ideas, it's about implementing them. We have a problem in Sierra Leone with implementation. How firmly are you convinced that this particular system will be used as thoroughly as possible? So
one thing I want to first of all allay your fears on, I'm a result-oriented person. I believe in implementation of processes, rules, laws. So the MAPS process, which covers about 4 pillars of thematic areas. Pillar 1 talks about the legal and policy framework. That's the legal environment that procurement operates. And Pillar 2 talks about the institutional and capacity management, where you find institutions like NPPA, IPRP, and the procuring entities. How do they operate and do their work in that space? You have Pillar 3 that talk about market operations and practices, which now deals with how processes between private sector and the public sector interplay when procurement activities are going on. Then we have a Pillar 4, which talks about accountability, transparency, and control of corruption. So all of these things are things that have been looked at, and recommendations are being made towards what changes to be made to our laws, what changes to be made to our processes. And it does not just limit to the procurement process itself. It also looked at the entire PFM framework, wherein procurement is part of that framework, you see. One of the recommendations is about having a whistleblower. The whistleblower also formalized to have a law on whistleblowing. We currently have a law on whistleblowing, but it's embedded in the anti-corruption law. But whistleblowing does not only stop with anti-corruption. It involves various spheres of government operation or public life. So these are things that they are looking at. They are looking at also, they also have recommendations in terms of how the PPP operates, the public-private partnerships operates, and how that can be improved on. So they have series of things that they have highlighted across the board within the PFM landscape and specifically on procurement. So we want to move away from a general system of having the lowest bidder to having the most advantageous bid, which now will not just eliminate somebody because of his price. It's a merit-based approach. So if you put a tender together, every aspect of the tender will be assessed, and it will be now merit-based. You have scores that will determine who will be the most responsive bid.
When you do these procurements, what's most crucial? I know there are several criteria that determines you doing business with a particular entity. What are some of the key indicators you look for in most of your purchases?
So basically, for you to be able to do business with government, that's also another issue that we need to understand. It must be a legitimate business. So we have basic eligibility requirements. It must be a registered business because government is using public funds. So it will not just give business to anybody that does not have a face, does not have a legal entity in terms of its existence. So we also want to make sure that you are compliant in your tax obligations. We also want to make sure that you are able to pay your NACIT. Your workers are not disadvantaged. So all these legal requirements, eligibility requirements are considered. You
check whether the particular institution is paying the NACIT?
Yes, for his staff, yes. You have to be compliant in that.
Has that been happening for all of your
For all
businesses?
of our procurement, yes. It's an eligibility requirement. So now, those general eligibility requirements, you have to meet by every business for you to even graduate to the technical stage onto the financial stage. So you must meet the basic eligibility requirement, then you come to the specific of the procurement, the technical requirement, so that you meet the technical requirement based on what scope of exercise they are undertaking. If it's a goods, what type of good they are buying. If it's a service, what type of service they want. Is it an intellectual service or is it an non-intellectual service? With maybe a service to maintenance air conditions. These are non-intellectual service. Or is it an ICT service to provide an ICT system? These are non-intellectual services. So based on those terms of reference, you now be evaluated or assessed. And then you will be looked at your financials that you put together for either a goods or a work service or a consultancy service. Combining all those assessments will now lead us to determine if you are the most responsive bid among the lots. And the most responsive bid in terms of both price and technical compliance will now be the winner of the bid.
Does quality matter?
So yes, so quality is assessed at the technical stage.
Okay.
So that is the aspect where you assess quality. So in terms of quality, you now look at the specification offered. If you are buying a computer, somebody is offering you an i3 computer, the one will offer you i5 computer, the other one will offer you an i7 computer. So you now look at what we call also goods manufacturing, origin of manufacturing of goods. So you now look about their authorization, manufacturer authorization. So you'll be able to determine, is this a global brand that is reliable, this a fake brand? All of these are things that are assessed to maintain quality across the procurement process.
Between cost and quality, which one takes preeminence in most of your businesses?
So technical, it depends on the nature of the procurement.
Okay.
For low value items, they just assess the price. For common user items, if you want to buy a mug or whatsoever, so they will just, because it's standard good, a mug is a mug, you see. So you look at the cost of it as a low value item. But high-value items, the quality and the specification is more relevant, the technical specification more relevant than the cost.
Have you ever had an instance where the government of Sierra Leone couldn't purchase something because of the price tag that was attached?
So
Would that be the case?
That has to do with two things. The price tags, when a procuring entity is unable to buy something because of the price, it has a correlation between the budget they have.
Okay.
So we have different forms of procurement. We have a fixed budget procurement, wherein they have a fixed budget. The money does not, the amount doesn't change. So in that sense, when you are doing the procurement, you have to do it within that budget. And sometimes you have to fit into that budget. Whether you have to reduce your scope, if it's a works, you have to reduce your scope so it fits into it. So you cannot go and, if you're supposed to do a 4-story building, you cannot go beyond it. If the money does not reach for the 4-story building, then you have to reduce to a 3-story building. So in terms of the fixed budget. And if it's a goods, you cannot go beyond the money that is stipulated. And sometimes in the end, you have something. So it's not that you go zero. You have something as long as there is funds for that activity.
Which particular MDAs do you work with? Do you do purchases for all of government institutions?
So we don't do any purchases.
Okay.
We don't do purchases. The MDAs do their purchases.
Okay.
So in a decentralized procurement system, you have all procuring entities are the procurers of their activities,
okay,
and of their goods and all of their services. So like if you take, for example, the Ministry of Health, they buy all their drugs.
Okay.
They hire all their consultants. So we monitor and make sure that they are in compliance with the laws that govern the process.
Of buying?
Yes, of doing procurement. That's what we make sure that they are in
where do you
compliance.
come in quite crucially? Let's say, for instance, you mentioned the Ministry of Health wants to buy drugs. How does the NPPA help in this instance?
So we make sure that they follow due process. They will have to go, if it's based on the envelope. If you are buying like drugs worth millions of dollars, you are required to do a public advertisement. We make sure that you do the public advertisement.
Okay.
And you are supposed to do a proper evaluation, a transparent, compliant evaluation. We make sure that is done, and we make sure that the contract is awarded based on fair and transparent manner. And at the end, also we make sure that the goods that are being procured are the actual that has been signed for. So you cannot ask for a computer of i5 and you bring in an i3. You can bring a better one, like you can bring an i7, but you cannot bring below the standards that you set for the particular activity.
A lot of people have criticized actually the types and quality of medicines that are being shipped into Sierra Leone. That's why I asked that question earlier, whether you do the vettings to ensure quality in some of these drugs.
So yes, so basically in terms of quality of drugs, that responsibility is managed by the pharmacy board. Okay. So for every drug that comes into Sierra Leone, I've worked in the Ministry of Health before, so they are all registered and pre-qualified by the pharmacy board. So they do quality assurance and make sure that the goods manufacturer practices GMP are in compliance. Sometimes we can say at the NPPA that this procurement should meet or should be done by WHO pre-qualified companies. So like the manufacturer authorization you are presenting, it should come from a factory that is WHO pre-qualified. So that is itself is a quality assurance, because WHO is the global health organization. And it also have its own quality assurance checks they do on all pharmaceutical industries.
Have you ever halted a particular procurement process for issues of quality and standard?
So you will not halt a procurement process for quality and standard. You will halt a procurement process possibly for anomalies during the process of selection. So you have different stages of the procurement process. You have a selection stage wherein you identify a contractor to undertake a particular assignment. So you can halt at that stage, and also you can now monitor at the other stage where you talk about now actual contract management. That's where you check for quality in terms of compliance of specification, in terms of compliance, in terms of bills of quantities or technical drawings. So you can stop a contract that is not going in line with the specifications or the terms and conditions of the contract, such as if they are doing a building and they are supposed to use XYZ content and the contractor is not complying, that contract could be halted until there is a compliance.
Let's talk about reforms. Now, the Public Accounts Committee in Parliament have severally called for updates to the 2016 Public Procurement Act, citing gaps in accountability, specifically in the area of sanctions for officials who violate procurement rules. But nothing has been done in this regard.
So that is one of the reasons why we have undertaken the MAPS.
Okay.
The MAPS is bringing out all these issues from a scientific point of view, and we'll be addressing them through reviewing the current Procurement Act. At the end of the MAPS, all the issues that are raised that are legally that falls within the legal and policy framework will be addressed through reviewing the act and the regulations and the subsequent standard bidding document and the manual. So then we'll now be able to implement them to address those anomalies. But for now, we don't have sanctions. But again, there are sanctions in other instruments, such as the Anti-Corruption Act, the Audit Service Operations. So there are sanctions now in terms of most of those issues. But again, we also need sanctions. So that will mitigate the deliberate misuse of procurement rules or procurement or the use of public funds.
Let's talk about tangibles. Against when should the public, the people of Sierra Leone should expect, the effects, or should I say the tangibles, of these marriage that you're about to, or union you're about to go into, the MAPS, i.e., give and take? So when should people begin to see the changes in your administration?
The tangibles are they are in perspective.
Okay.
So for now, we will complete the MAPS maybe by August.
August?
Yes. Immediately that we are reviewing the Act. So before the year ends, we will have got a new Procurement Act. So that's a tangible. And we subsequently, by next year, we are reviewing the regulation as well, which will reflect on all of these changes and subsequent documents that are relating to procurement. Also, another tangible is that we have signed a contract for the procurement of an e-government procurement system.
E-government?
Yes.
Can you what does that mean?
So the EGP, e-government procurement system, is the system that is the ICT system that is coming to digitalize the whole manual procurement system.
Okay.
So we are currently customizing the manual procurement system into a digital platform that at the end will now be used for doing procurement across government. So these are tangibles.
Which particular areas do you wish to see rapid reforms?
So first of all, rapid reforms will come in the legislation. Okay. Yes, and the other subsequent instruments. And also, rapid reform will come in areas of issues that the audit service is highlighting with MDAs, such as records management. When the EGP comes alive, one of the things that is will address automatically is records management. So you have data real time available as and when you want it, and undiluted data that will be undiluted. When somebody plugs into the system and works, that information remains and it can be tracked. So a lot of things that happen with the audit system is the ability to have record of the history of a transaction. And when the audit service or the auditors fail to achieve that, they declare the activity as unaccountable for, as a loss of funds. So now we'll be able to reduce that aspect. You will now see that every transaction will be traceable. It will have an electronic record. You know what it is. Even within the social media, when you have electronic record, you are able to track
digital footprints.
Digital footprint, yes. So that is where we are moving to, and it will address one of the major plague in government system, that's records management across the board, you see. So because procurement rolls into financial management. So it's not just the procurement, it will also provide record of financial management issues that border around procurement. And also records of activities, procurement activities that are undertaken. And records on who is having what kind of gender, you will now have records, real-time records, that this business is won by a gender-led, a women-led business, or this business is won by a foreign company. So these are things that will come into play when the EGP comes alive.
Which brings me to the next question. I mean, you've been there, you said 18 months. You've worked for 18 months, just a year and some months. What would you say are the key challenges at the NPPA? Major problems that you're on the ground?
So the NPPA has human resource challenge.
Human resource.
Challenge. And it also have logistical constraint in terms of also accommodation. So the NPPA does not have a building on its own as an office. It's, yes, it's rented, it lives in rented facility. And so that's also a challenge for an organization. And I inherited an office that didn't have any mobility. And our work is to monitor and reach out to procuring entities.
So you have no cars?
No cars. So that's a logistical challenge, equipment challenge. But all of these things, that's why we are also doing this study, because this study will address most of these things and it will bring it out in a more scientific, not in a presumptive manner.
You said you have human resource challenges. What are all these
So now, because procurement is
resource?
an emerging field, and it requires a lot of expertise. So to work at a regulatory level, you must have got a hands-on experience, a very good, thorough experience, both academic and practical, for you to be able to work and monitor experts who are doing procurement work. So, and that expert knowledge is lacking because...
So in essence, you're saying that the NPPA doesn't have experts?
They do have, but it's because of their scope of operation is bigger. The NPPA works with all MDAs, over 200 and something MDAs that we have. So you need the manpower to be able to do that kind of work, to make sure you drill down on issues that you are talking about in terms of making quality assurance, contract management, making sure selection processes are transparent and accountable. All of these things are issues that NPPA is supposed to do in terms of implementation of the legal framework that governs procurement processes.
So you're saying while the experts are there, they are not enough?
They are not enough. Not just NPPA, even within the procurement landscape, they have human resource challenge in terms of expert knowledge because it's an emerging field. It's only now universities have started doing procurement training. That's the challenge. It's not like accountancy where it has been going on, or it's not like law where it has been going on, not like engineering. So you don't have pool of graduates that are in the field that have got hands-on experience in terms of, so you still have foreign people that are doing procurement on ground. You see, where you have less foreign people that are doing financial management job, you have less people that are foreign people that are doing engineering jobs here, and also legal jobs.
Let's circle back to the finance department. You told me that the director had resigned. Well, when next can you start vetting people to fill that particular gap? It's a problem
this week.
This week?
Yes.
Whom particularly are you looking for?
A financial management expert.
I mean, qualifications
that has public sector experience.
Okay.
So you must be able to understand public sector management, accounting.
Now, since you came in, you can't tell me that you've only been battling with problems. I'm sure you must have had some successes apart from the NAPs that you're about to employ. What other successes can you point to? So
we have been very busy. Yes. So we have a lot of things that we have accomplished. First of all, we have a statutory report to produce every year. I met outstanding 4 reports for 2020, 2021, 2022, and 2023. All of those reports have finished producing, and we formally presented to His Excellency the President on the overall procurement operations of government for those periods. So we met when after the redenomination, there was a lot of challenge with the Leone's depreciation. So we reviewed the entire threshold system within the procurement process, giving some breathing space for procuring entities to be able to do their work properly.
So those are the key successes.
Yes, we are also doing other soft level work. We have been able to sign the contract I told you about, the EGP, the electronic system that we are already implementing, customizing. We also do contract monitoring of specific high value item contracts across government. So we have been doing we have been doing some capacity building, internal, external capacity building. We have also been participating in international programs like the African Public Procurement Network. It's a network of all regulatory authorities within Africa. So we are already currently part of representing West Africa in the coordinating team.
Let's circle back to the audit reports. Now, you've said that some of these figures were inherited, and you have no knowledge or little knowledge about them. Is that what you're saying, confirming this morning?
So it's not about no knowledge or little knowledge. The fact of the matter is inherited from my predecessor, but it doesn't
change the fact that it's still the NPPA.
Yeah, it's still the NPPA. Yes, but it's still the NPPA, but it was not. It has a dispensation. It's dispensational, so you don't take that out of the context.
There is still a debt of 2.8 million.
Well, I don't think it's up to 2.8 million, but that's something we can check, because it's keep reducing as we address some of the aspects.
Are you saying that you've been paying some of these?
Yeah, we've been addressing some people. Yes, we've been addressing some. But we cannot use all of our allocation for our current operations to pay debt, and we sit and we don't work again. Then we can be taken as irresponsible management.
Much of the audit reports that have come out do not paint the NPPA in a very glamorous light. What can you do to change this?
So, well, that's part of the reform. It's not just about the NPPA, it's about procurement operations generally. So we are making sure that we try to put in a lot of effort to make sure that some of these audit queries are things of the past, so that they don't keep repeating. So we are really working on addressing all of that. And some of these things that happen, we have now a memorandum with the audit service, so that issues can be properly dissected and dealt with and resolved properly. And so there is no misinformation about what they are doing and what we are doing as an entity. And also experts knowledge sharing on issues that has to do with public financial management generally is handled.
Now, you have serious problems. You are outstaffed. I mean, the actual experts that you need are not there. You don't have vehicles for mobility. You have HR problems. How can all of these things be solved in just a twinkle of an eye? I mean, it's a problem because you cannot deliver effectively if you have all of these problems strangling your work.
So that's a leadership problem now, and that is something that I'm working on to address.
Leadership problem?
Yes, because...
it falls on you.
Yes, it falls on me to address. I'm leading the institution. So maybe in the next 1-2 months, if I come here again, I will tell you, okay, now the NPPA has some logistics. And I will tell you, okay, this is how far we've gone with the recruitment of staff in the NPPA. So, and we are also rolling out, we are partnering with other organizations to build capacity, not only in the NPPA, but also across the public financial, across the procurement landscape. So we are working with partners who are willing to put in resources for us to train more people in terms of their capacity in procurement. So when those things kick in, then some of these things will be things of the past.
Let's talk about the future. Where do you see the NPPA going in the next 2-3 years? And by the way, of course, you know that the expiration of this particular political dispensation next 3 years. So what do you hope to achieve
so the NPPA does not work with a political dispensation. It's not a political office.
So you're saying that even after the expiration of this particular dispensation, you could still be there?
Yes, it's not a political office per se. It's a independent regulatory office.
Who appoints the head of the NPPA?
Yes, well, just like every head of institution is appointed by the office of the president.
The presidency.
Yes.
So let's talk future. Let's prognosticate for a while. In the next 3 years, 4 years, 5 years. Well, you said you don't have any expiration date. But let's say in the next 3 years, let's take that timeline. What do you hope to achieve? Where do you see the NPPA going?
So in the next 3 years, whether political dispensation or not, NPPA is on the trajectory for a major reform agenda. In the next 2 years, you will have the electronic government procurement digitalized.
Digitization?
Yes, mainly. Yes, mainly. That is something that you will see happening. You will see the procurement law redone. You will see a new procurement law, a new regulation, a new manual, a new standard bidding document, and a new approach in doing a lot of things in the procurement landscape. That is something that is not even maybe in the next 24 months. It's not just, in fact, in the next 42 months, but in the next 24 months.
Is it that overly ambitious? You think
no, it's not overly ambitious because everything where I'm talking to you is on course. Okay. I've started the MAPS process. The MAPS is something that is undertaken for like 12 to 18 months. I was able to push the development partners where I've been able to do the MAPS less than a year. If something that should be done in 2 years, you have been able to do it in less than a year. So I'm sure I met the EGP process started some 8 years ago. I was able to put it under control less than a year at the NPPA. So I'm telling you about tangibles, not I'm telling you about tangibles. So it's no longer, we are no longer talking we are coming to implement an EGP. We are now implementing the EGP because we are customizing the software that will be used by every procurement player. We are talking about reforming the procurement landscape. We have finished doing all of the studies that requires. We are now validating this study. So I tell you that by August, this will be completed. So it's very pragmatic.
Now, given that you have most of these problems, as you mentioned earlier, will these problems be reflected in next financial budgets?
So, yes.
Because much of which should be borne by the budget.
Yes. So basically, these are parts of the mission courtesy call at the Ministry of Finance by the African Development Bank and the World Bank was government commitment for these reforms. And also the commitment of the donor as well to support the implementation of these reforms. So I'm sure within the next 24 months, a lot of things will have changed at the face of NPPA, and not only NPPA, but the procurement landscape as a whole.
You could perhaps look at yourself as a reformist.
Very much so.
Yes, one who is quite digitally minded.
Yes.
You know, if you were to sit with the President, His Excellency, one-on-one, and you were given an opportunity to ask for something, just one, that would aid your work at the NPPA, what would that be? That one thing that you think would aid you?
So it's for the presidency to invest more political will in terms of compliance to procurement requirements at all levels of government.
Compliance?
Yes.
You think the political will is not there to comply?
So the political will is there, but also we need to have to build the capacity of high-level government officers in terms of the knowledge about procurement operations. So that's a request we've already submitted to His Excellency when we went to present the annual report to him, that we need to do a capacity reach out to the cabinet, to other head of institutions, so that procurement is not just about the procurement practitioners, because you have different decision makers that are involved in procurement process. For example, in an MDA, like a ministry, the permanent secretary, which is the vote controller, is chairman of the procurement committee. So he should be knowledgeable in the procurement processes. So you have other management staff that are part of the process. So they need to understand. It's not just the procurement officer that should understand the procurement process, because the decision making hinges on a group of people that are members of the procurement committee. And for a ministry, the head of entity is the minister. The minister signs off a contract. He needs to understand the process before he signs off, because he will be accountable.
So political will is indeed a major problem here.
So yes, because what people keep changing.
Yeah.
So because people keep changing, so you need to keep training, keep sensitizing, so that there is a continuous knowledge flow that will aid the people to be able to know what to do. One of the major causes of corruption is lack of capacity. So if we are building the capacity at a continuous pace, we'll be able to have the mitigation of low-level corruption within public sector.
Director, so what would be your departing statement, let's say your final statement to viewers, but not only viewers of this program this morning, the general public?
So I want the general public to be very optimistic that the NPPA and my leadership is on a journey of making a valid impact within the procurement landscape, and the reform trajectory is on high alert, and we're making sure that these reforms are not only done on paper, but they are also felt by the common citizen.
And you're assuring us as a people, as a country, that some of these tangibles you've mentioned will be achieved in the next 3 to 4 months, as you've said.
Yeah, in the next 24 months. We'll have a different face of the procurement landscape across the board.
Right, well, I can only thank you very much indeed for being on our program. I hope to be seeing you actually. You know, don't be avoiding the media. You know, when you come, you will shed light on some of these things. It will help you greatly in your administration generally. And I think you need to be coming more often.
Yes, yes. Well, I want to be coming to the media for relevant reasons. I don't just want to be coming to the media as a media celebrity, but to inform, to inform the public about tangibles, about milestones that have been achieved that the public needs to know. Also, we encourage the public to use our website. We have a lot of information display on the website. We are also scaling up our activities with the donor projects, and in terms of their compliance level, in terms of reporting, planning, all of these things are issues that we are trying to scale up on. So we encourage a lot of the public generally to use our social media handles to be updated on the activities.
Are you active on social media? Which particular?
Well, the organization is active on social media. So we have
NPPA?
Social media, yes. NPPA has some social media handle. They will also have our website. So I also want to admonish all procurement practitioners to use our website in terms of publication of procurement information. Yes, especially bid notices. It's a requirement by law. We are urging all procurement practitioners and procuring entities, both donor and government budget, to be able to report on their procurement. It's required by law. Their monthly SPF Form 6 should be reported every month, and that has a low turnout rate. And also it's required by law for all procuring entities to plan whether donor or government budgets. So, and that is also, the level of compliance is also challenging. So I'm appealing to all and sundry that if a procuring entity taken from the vote controller to the entire procurement team to take procurement compliance as a major requirement for transparent and accountable performance of public duty.
Right. Thank you very much indeed. Fodie Konneh is Chief Executive Officer, NPPA.